All right, everybody. Hello. We're back again. Going to do a few Q&A answers, and then I'm going to talk about. I put a post up on Instagram and Facebook a couple days ago of this bike. Got a lot of comments about it, and also people had some questions about the story I wrote with it. So first, we'll get into the Q&A. My wife Beverly's off camera, but she's going to read the questions to me. All right, Bev.
Stuart writes, you sent me a link with Evil Knievel talking smack. What was the beef?
Okay, he sent me a link. I wrote that down wrong. He sent me the link. He wanted to know what the beef was between the Hells Angels and Evil Knievel. You know what? I really don't know what the beef was, other than Evil Knievel was a shit talker. Anybody that's known him, he's very boisterous. Giant ego, very condescending. Uh, he just had an attitude. He had a chip on his shoulder, and perhaps that's what made him a good stuntman. But the deal at the Cow Palace, I've heard conflicting stories. You hear Evil Knievel tell it. You know, he hates the Hell's Angels. He thinks they should all be in prison, et cetera, et cetera. I was going to do an interview with Evil Knievel right before his death. Rode up to Montana, and there was a company called Top Gear out of England, and they were going to interview Evil Knievel. They were going to interview me, and although I wasn't at the fight at the Cow Palace, I was going to try to set the record straight. And I guess Evil Knievel didn't like my sense of humor because at the end of my interview, the announcer, whose name escapes me, said, "George, how about you and Evil having breakfast tomorrow, and we'll film it and we'll settle this once and for all?" And I said, "Yeah, that sounds great to me." I said, "As long as Evil's buying." And apparently they told him. He blew up, started shit talking me, and we never got together. I don't even know if the program aired. They had come over from England, recorded him, recorded me, and then was going to have the finale of us having breakfast together. Uh, I don't know what happened to it. Just one of those deals that never happened. Like a lot of things, people call up and they want to do this and they want to do that. They never come to fruition. So
Okay.
that's the story on Evil Knievel.
We got a note from Reed Barwick. Did you know Rick from Vancouver?
I did know Rick. I knew Rick many years. I knew him prior to becoming a Hell's Angel, and we continued our relationship. I remember him coming down to Ventura for a swap meet before they patched over, and he really had a good time. We had a lot of parts in the back of the clubhouse. I had that shop in Oxnard, a break off of the motor shop. So, we developed a relationship. Over the years, Rick got involved in a lot of political positions. I felt he was a level headed guy. He was always trying to do something good for the club. George Weggers and I used to meet up in Billings. No, not Billings. It's right up there by the Canadian border. I can't think of. See, this is my old age kicking in. I can't think of the name of the town. Uh, Billingham, that's it. So I guess I'm not as old as I thought. But so we would meet in Billingham at Peace Park, and Rick would come down, Weggers would be there, I would be there, Hell's Angels from the east and west coast, and we were trying to keep the war from Europe bleeding into not only the United States but into Canada. So Rick was a good guy. He passed away recently. Rest in peace, Rick.
Dave wants to know, did you know Mike McCloskey or Sully?
I remember Sully, but I knew Mike, and the reason I knew Mike is we both were Indian riders at one time back in the '60s. I had an Indian, and he had an Indian. I had an Indian scout. He had a chief, and he used to come up to the shop I worked at that later became the Hells Angels Clubhouse. It was on Fixed Way there. Pop Stanley, that was his place, and he was a Indian expert. But anyways, Mike was working there a little bit, and then he opened his own, Micah's, I believe was the name of it, in San Fernando Valley. Micah got in a real bad wreck out in the desert, and I mean, he's a real strong guy. He got run over the top of. I think he almost lost his leg. He had intensive plastic surgery, extensive, I mean, plastic surgery. He really got messed up, but he pulled through. And I don't know what's happened to him. Haven't seen him in years, but I do know him. Had some interactions with him, and always got along with him.
Okay, David Henda writes, did you hang out at La Honda? The acid test. Hunter Thompson and Ken Kesey.
Well, no. I mean, I knew Ken. I didn't hang out with him there. I met him through the Grateful Dead. Last time I saw him was actually at a Grateful Dead concert, and we were still doing the Kool-Aid acid test. I mean, everybody was loaded on acid that particular afternoon, like we were on many afternoons. So, was I tight with him? No, but I knew him. We discussed books. I'd never had thought I would be authoring any books, but we talked about his books and his writing and the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest that, they adapted from the book. I don't think he was real happy with the production, but, a lot of times writers aren't. But as far as Hunter Thompson, I was on a show with him in the History Channel in Search of the Hells Angels. I remember him drinking a fifth of wild turkey or quart. I don't know if they're the same. And then doing a big line of cocaine. Well, not a line, I should say. I'll adjust that to a big pile of cocaine and got ready to film. Now, he was also very interested in my 2002 racketeering case. He thought it was a bunch of bullshit, and he was researching it, and there was some dialogue back and forth. I never talked to him personally about it, so I don't know how serious he was or how deep he was into it, but he thought it was a real a bullshit story. He wanted to do something on it. So that's my Ken Kesey and Hunter Thompson stuff.
Okay, this one just says no flower background.
Okay, my friend, you'll see that I've got the background. It's black. It's a screen. It's behind me. I certainly didn't want you losing any sleep over the flower background, but I want you to think about this. Your mom thought it was great. But anyways, next question.
Carl Danger. Michael Thompson, former AB, talked of dual membership.
Well, I know Michael's back in prison again. I think he did some sort of insurance scam and it finally caught up to him. I think he's doing 5 years right now. But I will tell you, I was at the meeting. I didn't see Michael there. I'm being facetious now, kind of a smartass. I'm not taking anything away from Michael. There may be some people that on the down low were hooked up with the AB. Like I said, I was friends with Mike Eisen, but that didn't make me associated with his organization, other than the fact that I knew them, they knew me, and we were on friendly terms. So I know what I heard in the meeting, and dual membership in other organizations was not tolerated. So that's all I can say about that.
Okay, Diane Painted Lady writes, was Z a stripper and Sonny stole her from you? Thanks for setting the record straight.
No, Z was not my girlfriend. Was she a stripper? I didn't get into her personal life that deep. I'll leave that to your imaginations out there. But, she was 86. She went to Sonny to complain. Sonny fell in love with her and married her. But, the last wife he was married also was an informant. And that was the Beverly's putting her 2 cents in the background. But that's what, my beef was, that was questionable if Z had gave the police some information either by accident or by design. It didn't matter. Ventura 86'd her. Sonny didn't respect that. Next one.
Bobby D, can you talk on the war with the Pagans?
Well, I know that Lou Dobkins, I think was his name, started that club, and from what I was told, he just didn't like the Hell's Angels, and he took his personal feelings into the platform of the Pagans, and the rest is history. There was always conflict between the Pagans and the Hell's Angels. I don't think it'll ever be straightened out. I'm just finishing up my book, and I close the book out, I noticed that each generation of Hell's Angels had their own war. There was the Pagan War, the Outlaw War, the Mongol War, the Bandito War, and then ultimately the war with the Vagos. So, it seems like each generation had their own war that seemed inevitable. I don't know. I'm going to write about it. Uh, am I pushing my book? I don't give a fuck if anybody buys it. I'm doing it for a historical record, but it will be available soon. That's the big plug. It's the hidden plug.
Allison in Chains. Do Hell's Angels in prison band together to avoid joining prison gangs?
Well, the Hells Angels that I've been around in prison, the Mongols I've been around, the Outlaws I've been around, the Banditos I've been around, they all kind of team up together. Even in times of war, if there's conflicts on the street, they all kind of hang together. And the prison gangs not only respected the outlaw bike community, they were friends with them. So, I think that the outlaw bikers stand alone. In prison they have different terms. One of the terms they used in Texas was, "Is he in the car?" That was the term for the outlaw bikers. What car were you in? Were you with the skinheads? Were you with the Serenos? Who were you with? What car were you in? So I hope that answered your question.
Okay, we have a combined question from Motown X and Russ M. After the Flathead, what was your next bike?
Okay, I posted a pic on Instagram a couple of days ago, and I had a little story about the bike, and people wanted to know. A lot of people asking me what bike did I ride after I rode my flathead. I rode that 80-inch flathead for years. People all over California and then later the United States saw me on it. But when we moved the charter from LA to Ventura, and we were breaking in the clubhouse, we used to have a lot of parties up there, and the Satan Slaves would come up. And I won a bike in a dice game with Bill Reed. It was a 1978 Super Glide, I believe. And, I got it. I won it in the game. I immediately disassembled it. I did all the motor work on it. I had a S&S kit, 84-inch kit, high lift cam. I ported the intake heads, and I polished the exhaust. I was, experimenting, trying new stuff. I've been talking to Jerry Branch down in Long Beach through Monty from the Harley shop. He was giving me pointers on how to do this different motor work. He was an early pioneer in the hot rod stuff. Guys will remember his name, Jerry Branch. But branch heads were like a big deal. I had a high lift cam in it. I had a light Sportster valve train, Delaro carburetor mounted on a curved manifold, so it was facing the wind as the wind came into it. And it had a solid ignition, disc brakes front and rear, front end stabilizer. Anything that was trick at that particular point in time, was on that bike. I had Pirelli racing tires on the front and back. They were like match set. They were very expensive for that particular point in time. Now, as far as the motor, I did all the motor building. Dave blacked out the motor and all the covers with this experimental gloss paint. It looked wet all the time, even after it was dried. It was very wet and shiny. And, Dave handmade straight pipes for me. The straight pipes were also flat black. So we had it highlighted. We had the pipes flat black. We had a chrome front end with highlighted black pieces on it. The whole motor and frame was with this black high gloss stuff. And the rear seat was made from a yard shovel. David cut the shovel off the handle, and then did some cutting and grinding on it. Added a rear piece that followed the fender. You know, if you look at the picture on the bike, you can see that it followed the contour of the fender. There were rear chrome fender rails or struts, whatever you want to call them. A few years later, Monty used to come over and look at all of our stuff at the clubhouse. The Harley shop back then was right around the corner from the clubhouse out there on the avenue, and before it moved out to the industrial area. But Monty would come over and he'd report back to the Harley shop. And, you know, they built a bike a couple of years later. They built the Sturgis that was all blacked out, really resembled that bike. And then later they did like some special edition night train. But, you know, I think that should answer the questions on the bike. If you have any specific questions, just write me and I'll, you know, try to get you the answers. I want to talk about the story now. You know, the story was we pulled out of Sturgis. Cheryl was with the kids. And one of my simple pleasures back then was riding alone. And, you know, riding in a pack's great. But when you're the leader of the pack, and no pun intended on the song, but when, you know, you're running a pack, there's a lot of work in it, you know, a lot of responsibility. You know, you're riding through areas where people could possibly get shot at and whatnot. So it puts a lot of pressure on you. And one of the simple things I liked was just riding by myself. And I liked long rides. I put on a lot of miles. So for whatever reason, Cheryl and Mariah and Georgie were in the Dodge van. It had a high-performance motor in it as well. And we pulled out of Sturgis and made our way to Denver. And even back then, I worked out. I do my road work, and then I try to find a gym to do some light circuit training. I remember I jogged with Sandy Alexander, Chuck Zito, and other people I can't remember. And it was pretty cool. Like 3rd Street would bring all their weights. They set up a big weight pile in the middle of the run. I remember seeing heavy bags hanging from trees, and you see guys out there punching on the heavy bag. So, you know, people are doing a lot of partying, but they also had, you know, their physical presence in mind. But, you know, I was in Denver now. I got up in the morning, did my road work, 20 minutes out, 20 minutes back. And I went into the gym, do my circuit training. I didn't do heavy stuff. I did all light stuff. And I ran into this odd-looking couple in there. And they were as surprised to see me as I was them. And I had seen them several times on the main street in Sturgis. It was like they were milling around. And, you know, Cheryl and I both remarked on them in Sturgis. And so I went up to the room and I said, "Guess who's with us?" She said, "Who?" And I said, "Those two people that we thought were agents." And they looked like FBI agents. They stood out. You know, later the ATF and the DEA and the narcotics cops, they kind of started getting in the groove. But the FBI always kind of stood out like a sore thumb. You know, there was just something about them. They were educated, always dressed a little bit better than the rest of the people undercover. So anyways, I tell Cheryl what's going on. And she laughed. She got a big kick out of it. And I said, "Let's don't make it easy for him." I go, "Let's get on our way to 70." And I go, when we hit 70, I said, "I'm going to jump on. You go get some gas and I'll ditch him. Let's split up. Let's make them work for the day." And that's kind of the attitude I had and a lot of people had is, you know, we knew we were under surveillance, but we'd make them work for their money. So we decided to split up. We figured they would probably panic a little bit, make some calls. And they were behind me. They followed me onto the freeway. They were behind me. First traffic jam I hit, man, I was gone. And, you know, I never saw them again the rest of the day. You know, we were going to meet that night in Mesquite. Mesquite had started out as a really, really small little gas stop for Hells Angels, Ventura, and Purdue, and a lot of other Southern California charters. Not just the Hells Angels, but, you know, all the other big clubs, even independents. But we were going to meet in Mesquite that night, and I said, "Look, I'll hit the normal gas stops. You gas at will." So they have no idea where you're going because our gas stops are all pretty much situated because of the limitation on miles with the tanks. So late afternoon, I was pulling into Green River. I think it was Green River, and I felt something in my blind spot. And if you see that picture of me on Instagram, I got long hair and I'm all tucked into my bike, and I'm probably going 85, 90 miles an hour. And I look over at my left shoulder, and there's Mariah hanging out the window, her hair blowing. I don't know how old she is, man. She's, probably 13, maybe 12, 13, maybe younger. Little George is holding on to her waist, and she's clicking pictures, and Cheryl's on that Dodge van. She's right on my ass, to my left, and it was fun to see them. We hooked up. We stopped in Green River and got gas together. They weren't around. I said, "Fuck it, let's just go together the rest of the way." And later that night, we rode in to Mesquite together. That was our, gas stop. Denver to Mesquite, then Mesquite home the next day. But I used to have really a great time riding alone, and I had the van, high performance motor in it, so Cheryl could keep up, no sweat. But you asked a little bit about the bike. Got away from talking about any one individual, but we'll get back into that next week. If you have any questions, hit me up on the Q&A this week, and I'll try to get at it next week. I hope I didn't hurt anybody's feelings, and if I did, I don't know what to tell you. So, remember, no nets, no edits. You just push the button and go. I'll see you all. Thanks for supporting me. I appreciate it.